All right, welcome back to another episode, episode 13, Orange Ball Podcast. Brendan, Sam, as always. Interesting week of some hoops. We got the college football playoff out, and the schedules are out for that, so that'll be exciting. And what are your general takeaways from this week, man?
Yeah, I mean, it was probably one of the biggest weekends of college football in a long time just because of the controversy, I guess you could say, and the playoff implications, as well as some great basketball games. Kansas losing to Missouri. Had a couple other upsets that we'll get into, but yeah, it was a good weekend of sports for sure.
Yeah, I thought it was a fun time. We watched Boise State and Washington State play live. Tough one for the Broncos. Kind of dug themselves a hole in the first half and clawed their way back, but it was just ran out of time, I think, at the end there.
Yeah, I mean, it's basketball. You're going to have days like that where you just can't make anything, and they really did not shoot well the first half, but props to them for erasing, a 22-point deficit.
I will say credit to Washington State. I think I looked up at halftime, and they were shooting like 55 or 60% from the field, and they were making some shots. Mm-hmm. They have a good team. They had just beaten Nevada. They come right back and beat Boise State, so I'm excited for that to be a regular matchup in the league coming up too. That'll be a really fun matchup, especially when both teams actually play each other on their home floors, not somewhat on their home floor. But it was a good matchup, and I'm excited to see that in the future for sure.
And honestly, it was a really bad day for the Mountain West on Saturday.
Yeah, I had written that down.
Yeah.
Terrible day. Just an awful day.
Boise State lost, Nevada lost, Colorado State lost to Colorado. And then New Mexico lost to New Mexico State on their home court, which for the New Mexicans, that's a huge rivalry.
Yeah, if you don't know kind of that rivalry, that people don't really understand it, and I didn't really understand it until I was talking to some of the staff members from New Mexico last time we played down there, and it was like that is one of the more heated rivalries in the country, and no one really knows about it.
Yeah, remember that story a couple of years ago?
Yeah, they had a brawl at the managers had a brawl at their game at their pregame, and then it led into the big disaster with the New Mexico State program. It's just crazy, but for them to go into New Mexico and win, that's a big time win for them.
Yeah, no, props to them.
But yeah, it gets a little heated down there in the desert of New Mexico. So
yeah, new AP poll, Tennessee is number one again for. I want to say, when was the last time they were number one? I don't know.
It's been a while, yeah.
Yeah, it's been a while, but we're just seeing a lot of shifts with the AP poll and which team. It's almost like every team has a chance to go far in the tournament. I know it's early, but who are you impressed with this last weekend, or who do you think's rising to the top?
I mean, you gotta say Tennessee. Obviously, they've looked really good. We had a great game with Auburn and Duke. I thought that was a really good game. Duke comes out on top. But Auburn's still a team that really impresses me. I think they have like 2-3 legit like all SEC, possibly all American players on their team. They really athletic. But again, actually, and I kind of said it. It was really impressive to see like Cooper Flagg again play in a big game. He's not shy. He doesn't shy away from those moments, so that is impressive. I still, think that Auburn's a team that could definitely be playing for a national championship. And then also kind of a sneaky team is UCLA. They've looked pretty good to start the year. They beat Oregon the other night in Eugene, and I thought they have some capable players that look pretty good, and Mick Cronin's a good coach. So, I think those are kind of the teams that stood out from the week for me. Obviously, Duke winning that game was big, and then UConn bounced back pretty good against Baylor in Texas. So I'm not surprised that UConn's kind of rallying the troops as well. Yeah,
and talking about the SEC, I think they would have like 10 or 12 teams in if the tournament started today. Obviously, they still have conference play, and I saw that South Carolina, for example, has – when conference play starts, they'll have 16 quad one games in conference play.
Isn't that a luxury to play in one of those conferences where you have the problem with mid majors is you have to take advantage of your big games in non-con because you don't always get those in conference play. In the big conferences, every game's a quad one win or loss, so it's win them as you go, and if you lose one, you got to move on pretty quickly because there's no terrible losses in leagues like that.
Yeah.
Speaking of the tournament, there is some chatter about expanding it. I'm pretty anti-expansion on the NCAA tournament. 72 or 76 is being kind of in question. I could see 72. I think that means all 16 seeds would be playing games, which I like that idea because it gives more of an opportunity for a team that maybe is in a mid-major conference or a low-major conference that happens to lose in their conference championship game, and maybe they were the number one seed going into their conference tournament or something like that. Maybe they get kind of a bid. 76 though, I think means that all 11 seeds would be playing games, and that just means you get teams who are under 500 need major conferences that we saw like a Virginia get in last year where they don't belong in the NCAA tournament.
No. Yeah, I do. I agree with you. I like the 16 seed plan just because it gives smaller schools a chance to have that NCAA tournament experience and make money for their school.
Yeah, that's also a lot something that a lot of people don't understand. The play-in game for those low major, they count that as an NCAA tournament win, like money-wise. So those programs that don't earn a lot of money, that's a big payday for them.
It's I forgot what the exact number is, but it's a good sum of money. And if you have multiple teams, I mean, if you're a 16 seed, you're going to be the only team from your conference, but each win goes to your conference as well. So just a good opportunity for them. But yeah, I don't like the 11 seed plan.
I don't need the 11th team out of the Big Ten in the tournament, and maybe they, especially like if you're picking at those teams, those are teams that are probably losing in the quarterfinals of the conference tournament who haven't been great all year, and now they get rewarded. I think it's perfect how it is. We always see changes with this kind of stuff, so I'm not surprised. And I'm not surprised that the TV deals wanted more teams. Of course, they want more time slots for their games. So yeah. I mean, we'll see. Obviously they've expanded it over the last 20, 30 years, but I don't know. I think 68. It seems like it's reached a really almost perfect. Like it's kind of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like it's always been expanded, and right now, there was talks of like 96 teams. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I think 68 teams is a reasonable number, just considering like how many teams get in. It's lower percentage than other sports, but also I don't think there's 96 teams that belong in a tournament.
Kind of on that tournament talk, I saw a graphic on Twitter the other day of what if college football had an NIT type tournament, and it actually looked pretty fun to watch.
I think I think that would incentivize, especially like now that they're doing the kind of tournaments where you can make money. I don't see a reason why having an NIT tournament, you could still have the bowl game, the other bowl games, the other kind of bigger, like the LA Bowl and the Gator Bowl, or whatever those kind of lower, not the BC or not BCS, but the 6 New Year's Eve bowl games, but the kind of next level where like the Michigans and USCs are playing, like if you throw those into an NIT bracket and the winner gets a little sum of money, I think that would entice a lot of players to stick around and play 3 more games.
Yeah, and it would be fun to watch it. I mean, instead of like the typical PS5 or TVs, which you get for bowls, which are great, but if you had $1 million prize for the winner,
I think that would. I don't think these TV deals and all that stuff are short on money. I think they could sacrifice a $5 million prize to the winning team or something like that, and be able to disperse it that way and have really competitive games against teams who are 8-4 or 9-3. Like I want to see teams like Ole Miss and Alabama and those type of teams who didn't make the playoff. I want to see them playing more competitive football games
Yeah.
for sure.
And if you're looking at Alabama, you think they should be in the real college football playoff. Put them in the NIT version of college football. Let's see how they do. Like maybe they lose first round or something.
Yeah, I think that's always kind of the biggest with college basketball too. Like there's teams that are on the bubble and then they get put in the NIT and they go, I don't know. But then everyone can go, well, you didn't belong in the real dance, and now in the big one, but then there's a lot of teams like Memphis won the NIT a couple years. Like they have a real thing that going into the next season of, hey, we can build off of an NIT victory. Going into next season, we know we can compete, we can belong in the big dance. So I think that's a reasonable thing to ask, and I wouldn't be surprised if that happens after they kind of expand the next playoff system. So
yeah, I mean college sports is changing every day, and I mean kind of on the topic. They're already Boise State ruined the playoff basically, or the format of they're already talking about expanding it and changing it in some way, which is I could see that happening in the next few years, obviously, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think it was never designed to have Boise State and Arizona State get a bye. It's just how it was. They never thought. I don't think they thought that through enough going into the kind of expansion of, we'll leave it to a possibility, but there's low percentage that a Boise State is better, ranked higher than a big, another champion or anything like that. And I thought they kind of set it up all year for that. Like they ranked Boise State pretty high. And there's just no way they could have dropped them. They just kept winning. They left them at the same spot after close wins, but you can't drop a team for continuing to win. Yeah. So it set up, 4 or 5 weeks ago to be like, well, a bye is really in play, and they never lost. Yeah. So it just happens.
Yeah, I mean, they did what they needed to do, and it's not their fault.
I think a 16-team playoff is probably fair, and I think, I would assume that it would be reseeded, kind of where it would almost be like a section of the NCAA tournament, the 1 seed. I think all the first games would be at home. 1 seed would play the 16 seed, which would be, Oregon would play. I think just generally ranking, if you win your tournament, or not your tournament, but if you win your conference, you're in. But that doesn't mean you are guaranteed a higher ranking. Whoever wins it's the same as the NCAA tournament. You could win your conference tournament. That doesn't mean you're going to be ranked higher, just because of that. You're ranked on your overall resume, and then, the 1 would play the 16 at home, 1 through 8 play at home, 9 through 16 play on the road, and then you get into bowl games. It makes more sense that way, in my opinion. But
yeah, I would agree. And it just, the whole playoff thing just makes it more exciting towards the end. So it's not just like, obviously the top 4 teams and the 8th team just knows they don't have a chance to move on.
Like this year, I think if people are able to take a step back on it and realize, hey, we're talking about 9-3 teams right now. Like we are trying to find ways to get those teams in. That never has happened ever. No. So I think that's a positive for the sport, is that we're talking about, the rankings, quote unquote, but like we're talking about the 15 to 14th ranked teams in the country at nausea. Like that's good for the sport, that we're not just talking about, okay, here's 6 teams that could play in this tournament. Yeah. It makes more sense that way.
Yeah. No, I like it. But we asked on our Instagram to ask our viewers to ask some questions, some topics. We had a couple of them. One of them was, first one, where would you go if you were a top-ranked quarterback recruit coming out of high school?
That's such a tough one. I guess growing up in the Pacific Northwest, it would probably be, I'm an Oregon Duck. But, I mean, that's, always something that as a Pacific Northwest guy for sure. But yeah, I'm not like a huge like, oh, I'll go to USC in LA. Like that's not really my vibe. I think I would pick more of a school like Oregon right now, or even you go into I think even like the Northeast would be kind of cool. Like a Penn State seemed like a fun time. Something like that where it's football is such a big somewhere a school where football is such a big deal. I think would be fun.
Yeah, I would say two of them just because I like the whole culture and the uniform aspect and the Nike aspect. I would say Oregon as well.
Especially if Phil Knight's, putting out some shoe deals for the boys.
Yeah.
I would take that all day.
I mean, if you look at Dylan Gabriel, he's got heat on his feet every week. But I'll also say I would like to go to Texas. I'm a Texas guy. I'm not a Texas fan, but I like Texas. Just being in the SEC and having that Red River shootout rivalry every year, and it's just all football down there.
That's actually a really good pick because when I was looking at that question, I almost thought of like, I don't even know if I would. Like, I think there's such a there's like with the SEC, there's such a diehardness almost to a fault, which it would be really cool if you do succeed, but if you don't, my God. I mean, you never show back up in that town. I would like to go somewhere if, like, you could play for 4 years and every time you go back, you're a legend in that town. Mm-hmm. You could do that at an Alabama, but you could also be the most hated man on campus for 4 years straight.
True. It's a double-edged sword. And yeah, if you went to like a smaller town, maybe like I don't know, a small town Power 5 like Tuscaloosa or somewhere like that, like if you're the quarterback and your team's good, like you're the guy, you're never paying for a beer again.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
That would be kind of fun.
One of the SEC teams that I think would be not like the most obvious pick, but I think maybe it would be, but I think Florida would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think that's just like a cool the atmosphere there is always good regardless. We saw that this year where they were really struggling and their coach was maybe going to get fired, but you watch their game and the crowd's still into it. They're not, that they still pack out the swamp and all that. That would be kind of a cool thing to go to as well.
And the blue and orange as well.
Man,
great uniforms. Nice. Jordan.
But also, why not play on the blue turf?
Why not? Why not? Especially after this year.
It would be that would be fun too. So
yeah. Another question we had is who are the best combined college football and basketball programs? Like, I guess, like best winning percentage, you could say.
Yeah, it's kind of shout out Jack, by the way, Game Chat Podcast. He kind of hooked us up with all these questions. God, that's tough. I think there's a good amount where like I think you could probably make an argument for like Auburn is pretty good right now. They were really good at football. I think Oregon's good at both sports right now. A sneaky one would probably be like Wisconsin, maybe. Yeah. I don't know.
I would say Alabama, especially over the last few years.
Bama. That's probably the number one.
Yeah, this was a bad year for them in football, even though they just missed the playoff. And they've been consistently. They made the Final Four last year in basketball. They've been consistently in the top 10. And I remember like when we were growing up, they were bad. They were terrible at basketball.
Yeah, who was their coach like 10 years ago? God, he was an announcer. Jeez, I can't remember his name. But yeah, they didn't really care about their and kind of inverse to that, or not really inverse, but like Ohio State, like when they were really good at basketball, they were really good at football as well. So that's probably one that historically has a really good win percentage in both. When they had Odin and all those guys, they were still good at football. Or they were good at football, and they are now, obviously. But and even Michigan, I would say that too. There's a lot of them, and now that it's kind of funny because I think there is a lot of schools that have been predominantly football schools have started to invest more in basketball. Even like Clemson,
Yeah.
they haven't been really anything. And then their football program kind of shot that school way up, and now their basketball program's kind of reaping the benefits of that too.
Yeah. And when you look at winning percentage, I saw there's a graphic like last year. I mean, Boise State and San Diego State were up there too.
Yeah,
as well.
I think San Diego State's actually one of the top.
Yeah.
They win a lot in basketball, but they've had good years of football as well. If you have a basketball team that wins consistently over 22 games and a football team that goes 9-3 every year, you're gonna have a really good program with both. So I definitely agree with that.
Yeah. On the college basketball topic, we got a good weekend of games on Saturday. The one I'm looking forward to the most is UConn and Gonzaga. I mean, those teams are both great programs, and you kind of had it circled preseason. Gonzaga actually, they should have beat Kentucky last weekend.
Yeah.
But who do you got? Is it in?
It's in New York.
New York. Okay.
Yeah. This is almost like a. I don't want to say this now because I don't necessarily think this, but I would assume UConn is treating this almost as like a desperation type game where like they beat Baylor at home. They looked a lot better. They beat Texas. Now this is their big opportunity to kind of be like, hey, we are still here. We know what happened in Maui. That's done. I think UConn does win this game. I think Gonzaga is completely capable of winning, but I have a feeling that it's going to be like a desperation type energy for UConn where, this game really matters to them, especially in the national spotlight.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, Gonzaga's on the downward momentum following a loss, and UConn's on the opposite, following a couple big wins. And especially being at Madison Square Garden on the East Coast, I'm going to go UConn as well.
I think people bring up maybe like the travel. I don't think so, because if you're playing in Madison Square Garden, I don't really care where you're coming from. You're going to be ready to play for that game. Like, you're not going to be sleepwalking going into there. That'll be a really fun game. And but yeah, I think you'll see UConn playing with like kind of a desperation, kind of a trying to show to the nation that, hey, we're still capable of winning a lot of basketball games, and we're still in the conversation of being one of the better teams in the country, regardless of what happened in Maui.
Yeah. And then we got a couple other ones: A&M, Purdue, Memphis, Clemson. Who Clemson is ranked number 16 now, with their only loss coming to Boise State. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And then another one I'm excited for is Creighton versus Bama.
Yeah, that's going to be a really good game. I like Alabama a lot. They play they're one of the more fun teams to watch because I don't know their full strategy, but when you watch them, it's almost like they want to score with less than 6 seconds come off the shot clock. Like they are racing, like against North Carolina what was that, 2 weeks ago or something, or last week. It was like North Carolina would score and they were down the floor in 4 seconds getting a 3 up, and they've got some guys that could shoot it. So that'll be a really fun game, and I think Alabama looks pretty good in that game too. I like the Tide.
The Tide, roll Tide.
Another kind of good one is UCLA, Arizona.
Oh, yeah.
Old Pac-12 foes.
Yeah.
That'll be a fun one. Arizona's kind of struggled. I think they really need that win. But UCLA obviously is on a pretty good trajectory right now too. They've cracked the top 25, and that'll be an exciting game as well.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. Classic Pac-12 matchup.
Right.
So obviously with Christmas coming up, we're gonna have another show before. But if I were to ask you, what would be your sports related Christmas list? What would you want for Christmas?
I think one wish would be either Boise State or Arizona State to win a game in the college football playoff.
I like that.
I think it would just kind of silence they don't belong, and we could just be like, hey, we got it right with the teams. The format is what needs to change, but we got it right with the teams that belong in this tournament, in this playoff. So I think if either one of those teams win, and it'll be challenging, I think Boise State will get probably Penn State and Arizona State will get Texas. But I'm not completely sold on either of those teams right now. So I think Boise State, they're going to run the ball. Oregon did it on Penn State. Ohio State did it on Penn State. I think they'll focus on that. And then Texas just kind of plays like these sloppier games sometimes. And Arizona State, I don't know how much it works in football on like the momentum going into a tournament like that. But if there's any team that has all the momentum in the world, it's Arizona State.
Yeah, they've been playing really well. Cam Scattaboo says he's the best running back in the nation, which he's a great player, but I don't know about that.
What about you, though?
On mine, I want an Ashton Jeanty Heisman this Saturday. Yeah. It's kind of one of those things where just looking at social media, it's almost like a presidential election with the popular vote versus the electoral college. Like the odds or whatever you see on Vegas is kind of the electoral college, and the popular vote just is the people of Twitter and Instagram. Right. Because everything I've seen is just like, how is Ashton Jeanty not a clear favorite? But when you look at like the odds, Travis Hunter's like minus 1,000 or something, which he deserves to win it, but minus 1,000, that's a lot. Yeah. That's a big.
I think either one of those guys, if I can understand the argument for either one, but I just don't. I don't see the. I still see Ashton as the best player in the country, but it is I don't know what kind of deal Travis Hunter has with kind of like, if you were watching ESPN and they bring up the Heisman, you'll see clips of him and not anyone else in the race. Like, I don't really understand it. I don't understand any of the gripe about Jeanty not playing great teams. I'm not sold that Colorado has played the best teams in the country either. And if there's one guy that has pretty much willed his team to 11 wins, it's Ashton Jeanty, you know?
Yeah. Like, if you take Ashton Jeanty, if you swap, people have said this before, if you swap teams, Boise State, I don't think they're making the playoff.
No, I don't. And if there's one guy that's should have been left off, it's probably Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah.
I would assume, I would think that he's more of a candidate than, maybe. Yeah, I can see why Dylan Gabriel's there. He's undefeated quarterback, and that's usually a kind of a not a handout, but hey, we should probably recognize that this quarterback has led his team to the only undefeated team in the country, and I don't think he's a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback, but I think if there's one guy on Colorado that's probably bigger to their team, it's Shedeur Sanders, I would say. But
it's kind of funny, like Cam Ward and Dylan Gabriel are just going for the experience.
Yeah,
like,
and you can see them. They post on like Instagram, like they're just kind of like, I mean, we're not gonna win, but we're just having a good time.
Yeah, might as well a free trip to New York.
Yeah, why not?
Recognized as the top 4 player in college football. What's next?
Last week for football wise, there was some good games. Clemson wins on that last-second field goal. SMU played their way into the playoff in that second half because it was not looking good, and I think a lot of Alabama fans were ready to say that they belong, and SMU had their chance, and they were down, I think, 24-7 or something like that. I think they were kind of ready to make their case, and then SMU battles all the way back. Losing by 3 was the biggest thing that, coming back in that game was the only thing that kept them in the playoff, I think.
And I think the committee kind of shot themselves in the foot, because if they would have waited to announce when they released the rankings on Tuesday, like if they would have waited till Sunday, it would have been a whole, because we already knew the results basically, since they had SMU as a first round bye, and they claimed that they weren't going to punish teams for playing in the conference championship. So I feel like if they wouldn't have done that, they might have been able to sneak Alabama.
Yeah,
in
they
there.
kind of screwed up. I felt like the week before when they said, "Oh, well, the teams that don't play this week, they won't move." So you had to go, well, you already said that last week, so there was only two moves that could happen, which was ASU winning, moving into the bye, and then Clemson would just jump if they won.
Or Boise State UNLV as a.
Those were all realistically playoff games, and Alabama didn't play, and the committee said, "Hey, if you don't play, we're not moving people." Well, I mean, then you kind of knew what was going to happen at that point. And once Boise State took care of business, the only way Alabama, I think, would have jumped SMU is if that Clemson SMU game was 38-7 at the end of the game. You probably could have said, well, you had your chance to prove that you belong and you lost by 30 points, but they battled all the way back, and I think they're deserving of the spot over Alabama at this point.
And now Alabama fans are saying like, oh, let's just make a cupcake non-conference schedule, which when you look at their non-con this year, Western Kentucky, South Florida, who they struggled with probably most of the game. Like, I mean, how
that doesn't make any sense at all. It doesn't, because you didn't lose out of conference. That's not what we're saying. Like, if you want to schedule cupcakes out of conference, fine. Like, you have plenty of big games throughout the year, but you also lost some bad games in conference. Like, that's not a gripe to me. Like, if they would have lost to anyone in the non-con, then yeah, you could have been like, or if they would have gone up to Wisconsin and lost, I could have seen, okay, yeah, never schedule a Big Ten team on the road like that and just do whatever. And then I also saw like Georgia kind of said the same thing. They played I think it was 8 or 9 games in the state of Georgia the whole year.
Yeah.
So come on.
Yeah.
Let's not say you guys are playing a really difficult non-con and now you're being hurt by that.
And then if you decide to go that route, playing a cupcake schedule, and then you have a team like Ole Miss who decides on the latter end and plays a tough non-conference schedule. Both teams are 9-2 or 10-2 at the end of the year. Choosing one, you choose the team that beats good teams in the non-con. So I mean, it can bite you in the butt as well.
I think there's way more of a benefit to playing good non-conference games. I think there's still a benefit of that. I don't think most teams in the country play an FCS team, a really good non-conference game, and then maybe a middle of the road, non-power conference team, whether it be a Mountain West or a MAC or whatever. I don't think that, and the SEC plays less conference games than everyone else, so they get the extra week, that week like 11 where everyone's playing an FCS school. Like, I don't think the non-conference schedule is the issue here.
No.
And also, this year, this is not a historically relevant type thing because the SEC has been really good. But I don't think the SEC was as good this year as a lot of people wanted to say. Like, I don't think it was like this ultimate gauntlet of a schedule for most of these teams. And Alabama won a lot of big games, but they lost to two bad SEC teams, I think. So I'm not this year specifically, I'm not buying that it was like this insane road to go on for the SEC. There's obviously a ton of ranked teams, but also I think they rank a lot of those teams in the 20 to 25 range just to be able to keep ranked wins available for these teams sometimes. Yeah. I don't know how that works, but that's just kind of my take with it. And that I've talked to, with people on social media where it's like, well, this SEC gauntlet of a schedule. I'm like, I'm not arguing that. I am arguing that when you do lose a game, it shouldn't be to Vanderbilt or Kentucky or Oklahoma this year. Like, I don't buy that part.
I mean, Dan Lanning said it best: just take care of business and win your games.
And also, like, and then the playoff comes out. We all know Oregon wasn't rewarded very much with the layout, and that's why this thing will change. But also, like, if Oregon does win the national championship, I mean, you can't deny that they like what they would have to go through. I think it would be right now, like, the favorites would be they would play Ohio State, Texas, and then Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if they win the national championship, I don't know how you say that, like, they didn't run through the ultimate gauntlet of this tournament. But then there's some teams that could have, some easier type games. I don't think there's going to be an easy game for a lot of these schools, just because I don't think there's like a completely dominant team in this playoff too. So anything could happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's college football playoff. Every team's going to be good. You just got to take care of business.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to go to the Fiesta Bowl and have to play Boise State. There's like some weird voodoo magic with Boise State in the Fiesta Bowl, so I wouldn't want to step on the field with that game. That just seems weird.
Especially if they wear their classic Fiesta Bowl uniforms, which I think they will. We'll see.
Yeah. I would be nervous to play them in a Fiesta Bowl game. Some weird magic goes on.
Weird magic. We've seen it before, but how
about Bill Belichick?
Yeah, welcome back, Coach.
I don't know how this is gonna work, man. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like he's kind of be like Nick Saban and get frustrated with all this NIL stuff and the new age of college football.
I think Belichick, like, if there's one thing that he could possibly do, it's maybe be more of a. He should hire offensive and defensive coordinators that are, ready to kind of be head coaches in the future. I think he'll hire his son, but I think where he could maybe work it out is like if he's just more of a GM type thing and kind of works on the roster. And I don't think he's in the space to like go out and recruit with people and out recruit other schools. But I think there is something there where you could say to kids that, hey, I know exactly what it takes to be in the NFL. I know exactly how you win in the NFL, and you should come here because we're going to treat this just like an NFL team, and you'll be completely prepared to play in the National Football League. I could see that being something that, guys would gravitate towards, but I don't know realistically how that translates to winning a lot of football games in that way. But if he wants to say, hey, we're going to have the same schemes as the NFL, you're going to learn everything, and when you make it to the National Football League, you'll know exactly what to do. I think there's something there with that.
It's like when you're recruiting in NCAA football and it's pro potential A+. I think in terms of like scheme and just overall taking over a program, he'll be fine. But yeah, he definitely needs, because I don't see him as the type of recruiter in terms of like going to a college kid's house and selling them on coming to his program. I could see him outsourcing that maybe, but yeah, I think in terms of football specifically, he's one of the greatest coaches ever.
I mean, and like I said, they don't need to win. They don't need to go 12-0 or like. They could win 9 games, and that fan base will be perfectly fine with that being for football. And I mean, I think it's just difficult because you see a lot of college coaches, and I think one of the biggest ones that I saw was Chip Kelly when he went to the NFL. Like, you can't treat NFL players like college kids. I don't know how you'll be able to treat college kids like NFL players in that way. Just because they're so young and they don't know yet. And maybe that's something that he's going to say, hey, you're going to find out if you belong in the National Football League before you get there. That's interesting. Yeah. But, I don't know. It'll be different. It'll be different seeing him on a college sideline.
Hopefully he wears his cutoff sleeve or cutoff sweatshirt.
It gets a little hot down there, I think, in Carolina. But, no, I think I'm excited just to see him coach again. I think there's always a lot of respect for him in that rank, and so I think it would be more of the coordinators are doing a lot of the teaching and really getting to know the kids more because I think that's an important part for coaches. And I think he can be kind of a GM and say, here's our schemes, here's our schedule. You're going to be prepared for the NFL. And if someone's like, hey, I don't think this is for me, then I think you can say, hey, this is what's going to be like if you want to make it to the NFL. So prepare now.
Yeah.
But then again, rarely do a lot of guys make it to the NFL. So that's a different way too.
And you're right. He probably will hire Steve, as his name, Steve Belichick, as his D coordinator from Washington. But yeah, cool.
He's been around, and he's been at a lot of practices for Washington, watching his son. So I'd imagine he's trying to, after kind of hindsight, it's like maybe he was trying to get a feel for a college level job, and he was left out of a lot of jobs in the NFL. So maybe he was going back and looking at, hey, what do college teams do differently, and how could I implement NFL type strategies in college? And it's different. So I'm all for different and watching how that works out. Do I think it's a home run hire? I don't think so. I don't really know what it means. They already had cited like Mac Brown, who was fired for being kind of older. So you don't really get younger in that way, but it's definitely different.
Yeah. You got anything else?
No, I think that's it.
Sweet.
Yeah, man, it's another good week, and Army Navy this week.
Navy.
So that'll be fun. I am excited for the playoff, and the home games in the playoff will be fun. I think that will be something new and exciting, and a lot of good atmospheres next weekend, which will be fun. But we'll kind of go over those next episode. But yeah, exciting times, man.
Yeah. Yep. I'm excited for this next few weeks, and we'll be back next week with a special guest.
Yeah.
It'll be fun. But yeah, thanks for watching. Come back next week. We'll talk about this weekend of college hoops, Army Navy, and we'll have our guest on.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.